Israel is at war. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm your host, Barrett McNabb, and with me, as always, is the insightful Kimberly McNabb.
Hello, everyone. Today, we have a crucial topic to unpack: the renewed and intense war between Hamas and Israel. It is a topic that's deeply emotional and holds significant geopolitical importance.
Absolutely. It's been a turbulent few days, and our aim today is to shed some light on the evolving situation. Just to set up the stage, Israel Defense Forces, commonly known as the IDF, have stated their intention to take control of the Gaza Strip amidst the ongoing strife. We'll put a graphic up to show you what we're referring to.
The series of events was set into motion by a substantial surprise attack by Gaza militants. This has resulted in a tragic loss of life on both sides, with Israel responding with formidable airstrikes.
And the message from Israeli leadership is clear. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared to his citizens that they are not just fighting a routine military operation. They are at war.
The casualty figures are deeply saddening. Israel has reported at least 350 deaths, while Palestinian deaths exceed 300, not to mention thousands more injured.
But beyond the physical confrontation, there's also the psychological warfare. The fact that Hamas claims to have taken hostages, including Israeli soldiers and even American citizens, adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
So let's step back for a moment and consider the sequence of events. Early on Saturday, Israelis were jolted awake by the sound of sirens warning of incoming rockets, and this attack was multifaceted. We're talking about incursions by land, sea, and even aerial infiltration by paragliders.
That's crazy. That's just crazy. It's something out of a James Bond movie. But there's some discrepancy in the numbers. The IDF reports that 2,200 rockets were fired, whereas Hamas argues it was around 5,000. So let's talk about, they're arguing how many thousands of rockets were fired from Hamas. But it's reminiscent of the 50-day conflict in 2014, but the intensity seems to have increased, and Iron Dome is having trouble keeping up with the interceptions of these rockets.
The motivations behind Hamas' Al-Qaeda Storm operation are rooted in long-standing grievances. They attribute it to perceived attacks on women, desecration of the revered Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the ongoing Gaza blockade.
And in response, the IDF rolled out Operation Swords of Iron. A message from Netanyahu: Hamas is in for a reckoning. And while the military operations are underway, Gaza civilians find themselves in an incredibly perilous situation.
There's also a wider regional context. The Northern Front, with Hezbollah from Lebanon getting involved, and significant disruptions in the West Bank show the expansive nature of the conflict. Remember, these issues have historical roots, and the Israel-Palestine conflict being one of the longest-standing disputes in modern history.
Let's touch upon Hamas for a moment. It's an Islamist organization springing from the Muslim Brotherhood in the late 80s. Their non-recognition of Israel has been a sticking point, leading to many confrontations over the years. Both Hezbollah and Hamas are funded by Iran. When I was in Beirut, Lebanon, my long-standing project that I always did as a foreign area officer was tracking money laundering from the Iranian Republican Guard through Lebanese banking institutions and eventually making its way to Hamas and Hezbollah. With the stupid $6 billion gift just a few weeks ago that the United States did with as part of the negotiation of the prisoner swap with Iran, that's going to be a lot of money flowing to these terrorist organizations. Now, the Biden administration says none of this money is going to go into funding terrorists, but come on, let's not be naive. Iran will take the money and give it to the Department of Education or something, and then take the money earmarked for that department and shift it to nefarious purposes. I mean, seriously, if they really don't think there's going to be an end-around game of spending that $6 billion, how stupid can you be? But a lot of this conflict revolves around holy sites.
And the Al-Aqsa compound, revered in both Islam and Judaism, often finds itself at the heart of these confrontations. It is not just a religious site. It is symbolic of larger political and territorial disputes.
Internationally, reactions have been varied. Western nations, predominantly in the U.S., have condemned the Hamas strikes, while Arab countries are calling for de-escalation and peace. Interestingly enough, AOC and some of the Squad members are calling for a ceasefire. So Hamas gets to bloody the nose of Israel, and then they're not allowed to defend themselves and attack back. Immediately, the Squad is calling for a ceasefire. So it looks like they only think that one side should have some blood spilled.
Exactly. Well, looking to the future, the IDF is aiming for control over the Gaza Strip. In contrast, Hamas seems ready for all scenarios, even hinting at the potential of a ground conflict.
It's amazing. Already we've seen some IDF tanks, especially their Merkava, which is a combined tank and personnel carrier, which is a really cool design, some being destroyed and some being captured. And so, again, when you look at how a conflict escalates in from a latent or incipient insurgency, guerrilla warfare, and then moving into a war of movement. That war of movement is when the opposing side starts to have maneuver forces, and armor definitely fits in that category. But it's a multifaceted, heart-wrenching situation. Our hope, like many around the world, is that a peaceful resolution and safety for all civilians involved. Remember, there's a lot of civilians in here that are being impacted, and they had nothing to do with the planning or the execution of this horrible attack on Israel.
Indeed. Listeners, we urge you to stay informed and keep tuning in to Azimuth Podcast for up-to-date information.
Yes, thank you for joining us in this comprehensive breakdown, and we'll be back with more discussions after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
Welcome back to Azimuth Podcast, everyone. I'm Barrett here alongside my wife, Kimberly, for our 10th episode. Today we're delving into a topic that's taken the headlines by storm. Kimberly, what have you got for us today?
Well, Barrett, recently there was quite the statement made by Hillary Clinton in a CNN interview last week with Christine Amanpour. She brought up this term, formal deprogramming, in reference to what she has called the MAGA cult. Now, the word formal got me wondering, is she hinting at some kind of government intervention? Internment camps, re-education comes to mind. Let's take a look.
Yeah, because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
And how do you do that? Because you said you have to defeat them by...
Well, that's an intense claim, but clearly we have Christine Amanpour laughing at what is not a jovial comment. It really isn't. But this isn't the first time we've been hearing about deprogramming. I recall AOC, who is a Democratic socialist, proposing to the use of taxpayer funds to tackle white supremacism back in 2021, with some interpreting her comments as targeting conservatives and MAGA Republicans. The Democrat Party has a history of rounding up Americans and throwing them in internment camps. Think about President Franklin Roosevelt and his Japanese American camps during World War II. So we do have historical precedent for what Hillary Clinton is saying.
Right, and not to forget Katie Couric, who has just recently announced her progressive position. Shocker. She pondered on how to deprogram those dedicated to Trump back in 2021 on Bill Maher's show. There seems to be this narrative being constructed that all Trump supporters need to be corrected in some way.
It's an alarming sentiment, especially when looking back how President Biden characterized the Republicans in his speech in Philadelphia in 2022. Words like extremists, threatens the republic were thrown around. And do you remember the backdrop of that imagery during his speech was intense?
Seemed prophetic.
Yeah, his use of blood red colors in the U.S. Marine Corps as a prop made it seem as though he was going to attack conservatives with the military.
With the 2024 elections just on the horizon, there's a new twist. Just this week, Newsweek reported that the FBI has created a category to monitor and counter, termed as Donald Trump's army of MAGA followers. This follows the FBI task force created to target the Catholic Church and its followers. You know, Catholic Americans.
Yeah, that's cool. Targeting individual Americans for FBI surveillance. Yeah, that's not scary at all. Of course, the FBI director said that was a misunderstanding, but there seems to be a lot of misunderstandings that the FBI is doing, including the letter that was sent and wanted to declare U.S. American parents as domestic terrorists. So we're starting to make up a lot of mistakes, but this feels just kind of familiar, doesn't it? I mean, let's take a trip down memory lane to Mao's China, pre-Cultural Revolution. Remember the Lit 100 Flowers Bloom campaign?
Absolutely. Mao invited the public, especially intellectuals, to voice their opinions. However, when they did, many were labeled as rightist for their perspectives. This campaign swiftly shifted to the anti-rightist movement. What's concerning is that many of these so-called rightists were silenced, persecuted, and even sent to thought reform camps.
I.e. deprogramming?
Yeah, also reminds me of the camps of Vietnam and Russia kidnapping Ukrainian children to put them in rooms and
to hate Ukraine
and show propaganda nonstop.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Mark Twain's famous quote of history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And, that's just...
And I don't think we're that original as human beings.
No, I really don't either. But it's terrifying how quickly expressing one's views becomes a dangerous act. In fact, what is the criteria or what is the threshold that you disagreeing with somebody now becomes a dangerous act? And it's scary.
How many people get canceled on social media?
Yeah, I mean, you say one thing and you meant it in a harmless way, and all of a sudden you're canceled. But this methods used to deprogram these individuals back then are haunting. Hard labor, political re-education, and constant self-criticism. Almost kind of like apologizing now by being born with white skin sessions in these these sessions where even young children with white skin are placed on a stool, and all of the children of color walk by and slap the white-skinned child as to show that this is some way fixing some type of oppression. This all builds on each other, and it starts with dangerous rhetoric, like what Hillary Clinton said.
And this term deprogramming, isn't it ironic? It implies an attempt to overwrite existing beliefs and values. One could argue this is already happening with the influences of schools, universities, and media.
An Axios.com article earlier last year brought up the challenges of deprogramming America's extremists. I mean, so we're starting to see this trend. Mm-hmm. The proposed measures included monitoring online spaces, having a national hotline, and even keeping these extremists out of key institutions. Now, this is oddly and very scarily similar to the social credit score that is currently being implemented. It's been over the past few years, but currently being implemented in China. So you have these social credit scores, and your neighbors and friends and family can report you and start to degrade your score. And if your score falls below a certain threshold, your access to shopping, food, government jobs becomes lessened and lessened. And so it's a way for society itself to keep tabs on you and then report you. And then oddly enough, your score goes up if you are reporting people. So it becomes in the benefit of the the people that are doing the reporting to lie, cheat, steal in order to increase your score, and that's just absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yep. Well, I read a Vanity Fair piece last year which discussed the challenges in deprogramming Trump supporters. What is interesting is that the approach suggested mimics some techniques used during Mao's regime in China.
And again, it's going to be a common theme you're going to hear from me. This is just a slippery slope. Reflecting back on China, those labeled as rightists soon recognized the harsh nature of communism. Yet a few years later, a new generation, the Red Guards, emerged, embodying the values instilled through state-sponsored education.
And it poses the question, what's at stake here in America? Is it about preserving traditional American values? Or is there a pivot towards progressive ideologies? It's truly a battle for the minds and hearts of the American people.
So interesting, I met both Hillary Clinton and Christine Amanpour at different times in Baghdad and Iraq when I was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. This is during the initial invasion in 2003. Amanpour came in and listened to a battle update brief. It's called a bub. And there's two a day. There's one in the morning bub, and the afternoon bub. And ultimately what happens in this brigade bub is all of the activities that had occurred during the day were being briefed to the incoming shift. So oftentimes there was a night shift and a day shift. The brigade commander and the brigade operations officer and executive officer and all the staff all had opportunities to speak, usually started with the S1, or the human resources officer, if you will, the personnel officer. And that person would talk about all of the casualties, both killed in action and wounded in action, and where their status was being evacuated to Germany and then on into the United States. Incoming personnel that we had that to replace those losses. The status of how many body bags we had on hand in order to make sure that we were able to handle the KIAs. And it really, so the S1 is going on and talking about all this stuff. The S2 is the intelligence officer, and the intelligence officer is talking about what the enemy is doing on the battlefield, what the what type of attacks are occurring most, whether it's roadside bombs or RPG attacks or small arms fire. And we're trying to do some predictive analysis in trying to find when these attacks occur and what direction and what locations are coming up. And you can use a time analysis wheel to look and see what days of the week are higher on attacks, what time during the day the attacks are happening. And again, just doing intelligence on what the movement of enemy forces is throughout the battlefield. So that's what the intelligence. So they're briefing all of those things, and then you have the S3, or the operations officer. And that person is going and talking about all of the the results of past operations, and of course we're talking about recent, like the previous day's operations, operations that are coming up, including future operations. And this is moving a lot of men, weapons, and equipment all throughout the battlefield, conducting all these operations during the initial invasion, in while we were in Baghdad. Now, obviously, we had broken apart and were in different forward operating bases. But still, we're still conducting combat operations every single day, whether it be patrols, whether it be direct action against bomb-making facilities and things like that. And then you go to the S4. And the S4 is the supply officer, the logistics officer, and talking about all the logistics that's going on in order to move all this men, weapons, and equipment around the battlefield, and what spare parts we had, what levels of ammunition that we had. And so it's a very, very important job. And then you're getting into the S5, which is the civil affairs. Then even the JAG, the Judge Advocate Group attorney, would brief and say the disposition of, if we accidentally bombed someone's house and somebody's property was destroyed, we would have to go through the Baghdad courts in order to pay money to that particular family. So even he had a briefing. But then the brigade chaplain gets to lead the brigade staff in a prayer, and this brigade chaplain, he was an amazing individual, absolutely amazing individual. He was a former infantry officer and paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, and made it to captain, and actually fought in Desert Storm. So he had a combat infantryman's badge, and then he got the calling to go be a man of God. And so he left and went to seminary and came back into the military as a chaplain. And he was a big individual, big bald head, big meaty. Everybody called him the grappling chaplain. And he would do. He was big into jiu-jitsu, and he'd be more than happy to roll with you. So he was about 6'3", maybe 230. I mean, he was a big man. Just supremely fit. So he led the just like he always did in every bub, into a prayer. And Christine Amanpour was visibly upset. She had been taking notes throughout the entire battle update brief, but she was visibly just upset. And so when the bub concluded, and we all went to go do our jobs, she went and accosted the chaplain and said, "How dare you lead these men and women in a Christian prayer? And why did you think that you would be able to do that? What if there was somebody here that didn't want to pray?" And the chaplain looked at her and said, "That was your takeaway?"
That, like, we are in a war zone.
Yeah, we're in a war.
If you're going to pray, this is time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and he's like, "That's your takeaway?" The S1 briefed how many men we've lost and women that we've lost that are en route to Germany.
Comment, right?
The S2 talked about military, the insurgencies and what they're doing and what type of attacks they're planning and what type of attacks that they, what time we think they're going to start attacking things to get those trends. The S3 is talking about combat operations. The S4 is talking about resupply and all the ammunition that we're going through. And the takeaway was the prayer.
Do you think God had to bite his tongue before, just to keep himself from throwing that lightning bolt there?
Or I don't know, God probably, held the chaplain in place so, the grappling chaplain wouldn't put her in the hucklebuck.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly, it absolutely just, I could not believe it. And I was there for that when she went and accosted him. And he just said, that was your takeaway out of all of the classified information that you just got. The priority was to accost the chaplain for leading a Christian prayer. And his response is we're all Christians here. We're all Christians here. And, it was an absolutely just mind-boggling that was what her trigger was. Good for her. She's won a lot of awards, but I've seen her for real and not impressed. Just not impressed. But also, I got a chance to meet Hillary Clinton during that same combat deployment. And this is when she was a U.S. senator. And congressional delegations or CODELs are named after the senior congressional or whether it's a representative or whether it's a senator, but it's named after the senior person. In this particular instance, Harry Reid was the senior senator, and so it was the Reid CODEL, and Hillary Clinton was with him, and so anyway, here we are in Baghdad, Iraq, in 2003, and she directed. She, I guess, doesn't like the military, but she directed that all of us had to remove the bolts out of our rifles Again, this is 2003
Baghdad.
in Baghdad, 2003. Initial invasion had been fighting uniformed Iraqi soldiers who capitulated, now finding an insurgency, and we're on FOB Falcon, or Forward Operating Base Falcon, in southern Baghdad, and we were directed that we had to remove the bolts out of our rifles to make them non-mission capable, so that Hillary felt safe around the soldiers, that we wouldn't shoot her. So here's her vanity. These people are out to get me, and the enemy is out to get us. So we can't defend her or Senator Reid, if we're attacked. And that just, that's my live story about meeting Hillary Clinton, and again, not impressed.
Worldview flipped upside down.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely absurd. She asked stupid questions. Now, maybe it's because she was deferring to Senator Reid, since he was the leader of the congressional delegation. I can't tell you what they talked about behind closed doors, meaning the senators. I had full access, during the briefings that the brigade commander did. But it's the same thing. We did the same briefings to General Abizaid, who was the CENTCOM commander, and who was a 4-star general. And but anyway, those are my stories of meeting those people real life, and not impressed. I'll just be honest. But I still can't believe that the Democrats are taking this position on reprogramming conservatives, as it leads down a very destructive path.
Yeah, there's a saying, I believe it's in relation to the Holocaust of the Jews in Germany. And I apologize if I butcher it, but first they came for the gypsies. I wasn't a gypsy. Then they came for the communist. I wasn't a communist.
And I said nothing.
And I said nothing. And then eventually they came for me, and there was no one left to fight. And so, when you're considering people who think differently than you and you want to exterminate them, maybe think, okay, let's start that slippery slope. One day it'll be so-and-so. It'll be people with red hair. The next day it'll be people with brown hair. The next day it'll be people with blue eyes. The next day it'll be people that are short. Eventually you're going to fall into the bucket.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, guys, that's it for this segment. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. Welcome back to Asmith Podcast. Oliver Anthony, whose real name is Christopher Anthony Lunsford, has released another song titled Rich Man's Gold.
And as always, we're just a regular mom and dad giving our take on this man's incredible music. I'm here with my wife, Kimberly McNabb, and I'm Barrett McNabb. Stay to the end, and we'll give you a major Easter egg. But let's go ahead and take a listen.
Pay bills and die. You weren't born to just pay bills and die. All you need is a dog, a shaft, a crick in the back, and a good woman. Oh Lord, you don't need that rich man's gold. Granddaddy grew up on dirt floors. The whole county was dirt poor. Mama died when he was 4. What a damn.
So already we're getting a lot of the imagery that we always like to see. He talks about his dogs. He's talking about the creek in the back, the creek. So you can use those Zebco that it's been confirmed that it's the fishing reel and not the Zen cone to put on his dogs to stop them from licking themselves. Who goes to the creek with a case of beer and a dog and a cone on around his head? It's a fishing rod. It's a fishing rod.
Well, he starts off the song, you weren't burned to just pay bills and die. And I think he's addressing today's society where we get caught up in, basically keeping up with the Joneses. I got to have the Birkin bag. I have to have the Porsche. And that's not why God created us and put us here. There's more to that than just dying. And you can't take that stuff with you. So you have to focus on what's more important. He goes on to say, all you need is a dog, a shack with a creek in the back, and a good woman to hold. So he's saying what you really need is friends, dog, right? Man's best friend, unless your name is Commander.
Yes.
Shelter, water with a food supply, and notice he says a good woman to hold. He's not saying, oh, she's got to be sexy. And
it's not just
hot,
any woman.
Because I think any divorced men will tell you, a good woman is a great thing, but if you married the wrong woman, your life is hell.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important. I mean, his words have deep meaning. And again, you're absolutely right. He didn't say a woman, a good woman, one that's right for him. And and so anyway, he is married and has children with one on the way. And
congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Grew tobacco hand raised hogs, 7 youngins and some old dogs. I reckon they was living high on the hog way back in their day.
And that's interesting to saying living high on the hog. Obviously they're dirt poor. So what's the balance there? They're dirt poor, but they're living high on the hog. And I think it's because they have a family and they're together. And there's yes, it's tragic that his mother died.
And friends again with the dogs.
Family and friends, and he's got the dogs. It is tragic that apparently his great grandmother died when his grandfather was 4 years old. But still, they're family. They're together, and
I think it shows gratitude, even though you don't have much.
Right.
You're still grateful. You're not in a bad mood. You're not complaining. You're not saying, "Oh, the world hates me." Victim mentality.
Right.
So it shows gratitude.
No, I agree.
You say you won't born to just pay bills and die. You won't born to just pay bills and die. All you need is a dog, a shack, a creek in the back, and a good woman, oh Lord, you don't need that rich man's gold.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Incredible.
Yeah, I agree. It's just as soulful as other songs with an equal amount of deep meaning. But there's more. We've gotten a lot of grief, or some grief, in the comments section that we overanalyze his music. But on the flip side, we get even more comments that we're doing a perfect job and doing a deep, analytic of what we feel. I mean, we're really trying to do these deep dives into his lyrics and tie it into the statements that he's made, but also to respect his music and to be able to just understand it.
Yep, I think that's our point. So in our research, we found out that the video Oliver Anthony put out doesn't have all of the lyrics of the original song. We'll share those with you now and give our comments.
Right, absolutely. So the video that he posted 2 days ago it starts off with I guess what's called the refrain, which is the common, and so the refrain is you weren't born just to pay bills and die, weren't born just to pay bills and die. All you need is a dog, a shack, a creek in the back, and a good woman to hold. You don't need that rich man's gold. So he does that twice, and then he goes into the granddaddy grew up on dirt floors. The whole country was dirt poor. A county was dirt poor. Mama died when he was 4. What a damn shame. And then it goes into they grew tobacco and raised hogs, 7 youngins and some old dogs. I reckon they were living high on the hog way back in their day. And then he goes back into the refrain again. But we're doing our research because we want to be able to provide the correct in-depth analysis and respect all of you. And those aren't all the lyrics.
And I like the lyrics that he left out, so I would have enjoyed hearing them.
Yeah, I really do. Kimberly, why don't you read the lyrics that were going to be after the second refrain and talk about them.
People walking down easy street acting like they got hot coals under their feet. But they ain't been a day without nothing to eat. You bet the farm on that. Should I read through the whole thing?
Yeah, read through the whole thing and then go through some of your comments.
You got to start living off the land and living on love, giving up thanks to the Lord above. 'Cause when they put you down in that cold, dark ground, you're going to wish you weren't born to just pay bills and die. You weren't born to just pay bills and die. All you need is a dog, a shack with a creek in the back, and a good woman to hold. Don't need that rich man's gold.
Yeah, I mean, I really like these lyrics. I wish he had included them. We don't know why he cut these lyrics out, but there's a lot of imagery here, especially in the way that his family walked down the streets once they were in town. And they're walking by quick. But Kimberly, what's your take?
So people walking down easy streets. So I think he's referring to people who are entitled and spoiled, acting like they have it so bad, acting like they have hot coals under their feet, but they ain't been a day without nothing to eat. So they're not that bad off. They've had food their whole life, but they act like, walking down the street like they're walking on coals. They're just playing this victim mentality. They've never had real problems. If you want to know real problems, be a Uyghur Muslim in China, be a gay person in Uganda. Like, there's so many ways that you could have it far worse.
Yeah, I agree. And some of my take on some of that, people walking down easy street acting like they've got hot coals, seems like they're just running through life. They're trying they're high stepping to get off the coals, and they're just running through life, and they've never gone a day being hungry. They've never suffered, and so they're just running through town, running through life. They're not slowing down. And doing what I think the theme of this song is appreciating what you have, and not being focused on money, but being focused on your faith, being focused on your family, being focused on your friends and your dogs, and living life. Not just going through life, but living life. And I think that's kind of what the running on the hot coals, they're just running through it. And that's what you supposedly do. I've never run through hot coals before, but I've seen it on TV when you have the spiritual guru that does the fire walking and stuff. And it's you never see these Hollywood celebrities taking one step every 15 seconds as they're walking through that. Typically, it's about 10 feet long, and their foot hits the ground once or twice.
You learn to jump.
You learn as they're hopping through this, so they're rushing through it, and that's kind of how I take that lyric.
Yeah, and I understand that because leading into the next portion, you got to start living off the land and living on love. So I think there's a pride to getting your hands dirty, and there's something wholesome about it that I think even God meant us to do. Like, take our children, for instance. They would much rather be outside playing in dirt and playing with things that are free than these high-tech, super insanely expensive modern toys that they just barely open. They
play with
just
the box.
they only open it so they can play with the cardboard box and make mommy mad by spreading styrofoam everywhere. And then giving up thanks to the Lord above. So it ties all into what God wanted, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a theme that Oliver Anthony music has. That it's his faith, his family, his friends, his dogs, and it's his life. And so just absolutely incredible. But again, Kimberly, awesome for you for doing the extra research before filming this, because we found the missing lyrics that really we'd love to see Oliver Anthony put these back in his song. So doing the research before posting a reaction pays off. Now, here's another Easter egg that we have for you. Oliver Anthony himself on his YouTube channel left a comment that he will be releasing 2 new songs in December, and we cannot wait.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love his music. I'm sorry if I butchered the quote, but there's a Confucius saying, if you want to know the state of a society, look at its music. And yeah, I mean, I think that's why people like Oliver Anthony. It gives us a glimmer of hope of decency in this society, because otherwise we just have Cardi B and WAP.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest thing that I am thankful for his music is he has made the whole world slow down just a little bit. And that's what the world needs, is to slow down just a little bit. And his music is for everyone. We've heard people like, hey, it's just for conservatives, it's just for liberals. But we would reiterate to say that this music is for everyone. Mm-hmm. And thank you for listening so much. Please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. Hello, welcome back to Azimuth Podcast. In this segment, we're looking at an interesting twist in the Republican presidential race involving North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. I am Kimberly McNabb.
And I'm Barrett McNabb. Did you know that Doug Burgum once worked as a chimney sweep to pay his way through college? It's a testament to the values of hard work and initiative. Let's look at his campaign video at dougburgum.com.
Biden's inflation is choking American families. You're paying too much for everything, from gas to groceries. Under Biden, the economy's crawling. I'll get it sprinting. In our state, the economy's on fire. We passed the largest tax cut in history, balanced the budget by cutting billions, and slashed red tape. As your president, I'll get America booming.
Doug Burgum, business leader, conservative governor.
I'm Doug Burgum, and I approve this message.
Okay, awesome. He's got one, as we've learned, he's got a video. That's important. 2, it has a lot of inspirational music. It makes you feel good. It talks about
pretty short.
It's pretty short. That's kind of the only critique I would give it. But it talked about some of what he did in his past, and then it talked about what he's going to do as president.
To achieve the objectives.
Yeah. So I mean, it's short, sweet, and present. So good on you, Governor Burgum.
And now, as he enters the political arena, Burgum is employing an unconventional approach to gain a spot on the debate stage. He's offering donors a $20 gift card in exchange for a minimum $1 donation.
Wow. Well, to qualify for the debates, candidates needed at least 40,000 donors and donations from 200 or more donors in 20 states. Obviously, this, as the debates ramp up, the criteria is going to be larger and larger.
Yeah, that was for the first debate.
But this creative approach showcases Burgum's determination to stand out in a crowded field of Republican contenders.
And moving on to his stances, Burgum's platform focuses on economic issues. He aims to get inflation under control, lower taxes, and reduce the cost of living for Americans.
Which we all need. I mean, we can all use that.
But every candidate has their strengths and their weaknesses. Burgum's strengths lie in his working class background and sharp business sense.
However, his decision to do this exchange gift cards for donations has drawn attention, both positive and negative. I mean, some see it as innovative and thinking outside of the box, while others view it pretty skeptically. I mean, it could be, it's not the same as buying votes, right? It's not the same as buying votes, but it's pretty close to get these donors to do it, and I think what you really want, or the intent of the RNC, is to show the popularity of the particular candidate and how well they can draw and do fundraising. So in this instance, it's not fundraising because it is a negative $19 exchange. So it's defund raising.
Math's not math,
Yeah,
as they say.
yeah, math is not math there.
Well, his relative unknown status and less experience could be challenges he'll need to address.
However, his ability to innovate and his unique approach to fundraising could set him apart, but I would again argue this is defund-raising because it's netting a negative loss of $19.
It was probably more for name recognition.
It could be.
Especially when you're going up against Trump, who needs no help in the name recognition department.
Yeah, I guess it's the exact same thing as a small business that says, hey, leave us a Google review and we'll give you a $5 Starbucks gift card or something like that. I mean, it's kind of the thing, and so it's helping you out with your search engine optimization, and so it's worthwhile for businesses to do that. But yeah, I can see it. But it's pretty short and sweet for Governor Burgum. I think he's done pretty well in the two debates that he's had. The problem that he has, and I know it's frustrating for him, is that he is not getting a chance to jump in because he's all the way in the far end of the stage, and he's not getting a chance to jump in on some of the topics. One of which he really wanted to jump in was the energy crisis.
And they basically like, shh.
And they're like, be quiet. And he's like, I'm the only one that actually has oil pumps going in my state. And so I want to talk about this energy thing.
I would say that's some credibility.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it is, and it was unfortunate that he's kind of been kind of relegated. I honestly would love to see, and I know people didn't like it, but I kind of did, the two debates where there was 3 people in the first debate and then 4 people in the second debate, and they were the same night. They were just call it the A team and the B team, but at least it would allow these people to
More
talk.
Talking time, yes.
Or in the debate format, allotting everybody 20 minutes, and if you start talking, your time ticks down until you don't have any time remaining. But anyway, I think Governor Burgum's answers when he does get to talk are excellent. It's just that he's not getting a lot of airtime.
Yeah, exactly. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Thank you so much for your support. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.